Alright, this is video A26. It's on the distributed property, and I'm doing number 6. So, the first thing I have to look at is why, oh why, are there parentheses there? And the reason for that is it tells me that I need to distribute, right? So these parentheses, that's not what I wanted. Hold on to your socks. So those parentheses there and there tell me that I have to distribute this. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So I'm going to take my original equation and rewrite it now that I can't figure out how to get rid of that arrow. So let's rewrite it really quickly.
Was that your problem or?
No, it's for my students. I know how to solve this. Thanks, Dad. So, and now I'm going to go ahead and distribute. So once again, the parentheses are there to tell me I have to multiply that, right? So I'm going to have 0 and 1/10, and I'm going to multiply that by 30x, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and do the next part of it, which is I'm going to subtract, so I keep my sign, 0.1 or 0 and 1/10, and I'm going to multiply it by 50. So I distributed this 1/10 to both numbers inside the parentheses. So when I multiply 30 by 1/10, since I'm multiplying it by a number that is less than 1, I am going to end up, right, this is less, why is it doing this? Why are you not doing what I want? Since this number is less than 1, I know that I'm going to end up with a number less than 30. So there's one number behind the decimal here, so I'm going to move this one place over. So I'm going to come over here. It's as if this is 30.0, and this is going to get moved over one place. Helen, can you? Okay, so that's going to move my decimal over one place, and that's going to, 30 times 1 is 30, and I end up with 3x. Same thing happens over here, right? And it's as if there's a decimal here. Since there's one place behind the decimal here, I'm going to move it over and get minus 5. Once again, if I was to think about it this way, 1/10, I could write it this way as 1/10 times 50 over 1, right? And that would give me 50 over 10, which is 5. All right? So however, whichever way is easier for me to understand. All right, so in this case here, I'm going to go ahead and tell her I'll talk to her in 1 second. All right, and so in this problem here, I think what I'm going to ask you is when I distributed and I multiplied 1/10, and I multiplied 1/10 by 30x, why did I end up with a number smaller than 30? I ended up with 3x. So why is that?
Do you work tomorrow?
And the answer to that, of course, is going to be because I multiplied by a number that is less than 1. So my result is going to be a number less than 30. All right, so that's the first thing that I'm going to ask you. And the second thing I'm going to ask you is why was it minus 5x?
You don't have to. That's a long
Why is it minus 5? And the answer is, right, because I keep my sign, and I have a positive 1/10 times a positive 50, and I end up there. So, does it? All right, and then I will do the next problem.
Cindy and Dave don't want to.
So I have
Nick and,
number 14, and it's the opposite of negative 7x minus 1. And so in order to solve that, right, this is doing the distributive property. And so when I go ahead and do this, what I'm saying is I'm going to distribute that negative sign. Another way to think about it is as if this problem is the same thing as saying negative 1 times negative 7x minus 1. When I do it that way, I can see it's exactly the same way as it always is. So once again, you know, these parentheses are here to remind me to distribute that -1 to both numbers. So let's go ahead and do that distribution. And so here I go. I'm going to distribute it there. And that's going to give me -1 times -7x. And then I'm going to have minus, so I'm going to keep this sign here. And then I'm going to have times -1 times 1. Okay? If that's hard for me to see, maybe I want to think of it as this way. Maybe this is easier. If I say it's -1 times -7x plus -1. And you'll see you get exactly the same answer, right? I distribute here, right? That's going to give me -1 times -7x plus, right? And I distribute here, and I'm going to get -1 times -1. No matter which way I think about it, right? If I think about it this way or I think about it this way, I end up with exactly the same thing. So this, a negative times a negative is a positive, and I end up with 7x plus, and negative times a negative is a positive, so 1. And here, if I look at the green, right, I would have ended up with, let's do it over here, 7x, right, because negative times a negative gives me a positive, and then I would have had minus a negative times a positive, which would have given me a -1, but that, of course, gets rewritten as 7x plus 1. So either way, I get exactly the same answer. So let me just tell you what I was going to ask you for questions for this one. So the first question I was going to ask you was the opposite. So if I over here, the opposite with these parentheses is the same thing as saying -1 times this, right? So this is as if there's an unwritten 1 here, because 1 times it's 1 is the multiplicative identity, right? So 1 times anything is going to give me what I started with. And the second question I'm going to ask you is, why are there parentheses? And the answer to that is so you remember to distribute to both numbers. All right, and then your extra credit this time is, I don't know, let me write. I'll draw a picture for you in purple. I'll draw for you a purple star. There, so your extra credit is a purple star. All right, guys, that's it for the video for today, and we're done. Just 2 more to go this week.